Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and of course, my they, them royalty, this is the Broke Boys Sports Podcast. My name's Ashton Gene Lewis. I guess we're back to talking about the best and the worst that sports has to offer, which, thanks to one person in particular, we got plenty of stuff to talk about. But we're going to talk about the WNBA and their current negotiation cycle that they got going on in terms of the union stuff. Also wondering whether or not anybody heard the song. Okay, they did. No, the audio played through. WNBA negotiations, all that jazz like that, man. We're going to talk about Tony Clark, talk about, unfortunately, Sean Strickland, and I'd be remiss if I didn't open this show by saying something that's really important. Rest in peace to Reverend Jesse Jackson. Rest in peace to Linda Davis, who did not deserve what happened to her. And if we lived in a better society, we'd have, stuff like that wouldn't happen. Anyway, let's take it from the top. You guys know how this goes. I got to spend a good chunk of time here. Actually, I'm going to put the theme song back up so I can spend a good chunk of time here sending out tweets. Shouldn't take too long now that this stuff is live. Also, we're backlogged into...
You're a bitch. You know that?
We're backlogged into Facebook, so we can just post from here. Give me a second. Also, I definitely need the link to my own show, which would help getting people to watch, which apparently a good chunk of people watched last week. Little surprising, not gonna lie. It's always surprising when people take time out of their day to watch a podcast that I put together, especially considering how difficult it is. I do appreciate every single person who does go out of their way to do that. And I was gonna do a little sound check, but I decided not to. So shout out to any person who showed up. And like I say, I appreciate every single second that people spend checking out my podcast and everything that goes with it. Control A, Control T. What you're seeing right now is a true masterclass on how to run a podcast. When you only do it yourself, when you're doing it live, you don't do any edits or anything like that. Shout out to Alyssa Chavez doing her thing. I just opened up Twitter. That's why I said that. Apparently, Alyssa, who is from the Houston area, has been fucking killing it at Oklahoma this season so far. And it also looks like this season for women's college basketball, we are going to have like some other teams in the mix other than UConn. Last year, it felt like it was kind of like unspoken. And I guess everybody else is just finding out that hold on a second. Wow, how did the formatting change when I just copied and pasted it from somewhere else? Crazy work. Sean Strickland, NFLPA. I do have enough spaces for this. Do not take my spaces away. Yeah, man, unfortunately, we got to talk about that piece of shit again. I feel like I talk about Sean Strickland too much, and I think I've only talked about him on the show twice. Anyway, yeah, man. Let's get into the actual show. Start chopping it up a little bit, man. We got the cigar popping again. Shout out to everybody who tuned in last week and checked it out. I think, you know what, man? I'm going to start with the negative and we're going to go to the positive because I think it's a little bit more fitting when I start by talking about the shitty people in the world and then talk about all the awesome shit that other people are doing that is inspiring, as opposed to, well, I guess Sean is inspiring to some, and luckily for me, I don't know those people, and I will continue to not know those people. So Sean Strickland, if you guys don't know who he is, he's a UFC champion, Ultimate Fighting Championship, which if you haven't seen it in a while, it's because they're no longer signed with ESPN. If you want to know who they're signed with, you can go figure that out yourself. I'm not giving those people free promo. They don't pay me at all, but Sean Strickland dropped the F word that we used to, that is used as a slur for our queer brothers and sisters out there, which is a very favorite vocabulary word for a lot of angsty white teenagers in America, somewhat. And then, of course, like, you know, every other shitty teenager that grows up thinking that they want to be edgy and really change the game. Anyway, he dropped the F word, I want to say no less than 5 times, which obviously is him being like intentional about it, him trying to represent a certain thing. We'll talk about the nuance of it. He says nobody cares. They asked him about Ronda Rousey, Gina Carano fighting each other. I'm going to be honest with you. anything that involves Gina Carano will not be getting my attention. I don't care to see her get her ass whooped, because if you want to do that, you can go look at her old fights. She was really good for a short period of time, and then she started getting her ass whooped. She almost transitioned into being a movie star. She was in like three movies, and then she was in two Fast and the Furious, not Too Fast, Too Furious, and not Fast and the Furious 2, Tokyo Drift. She was in another Fast and I think it was like Fast 7, which is unfortunate because Fast 7 is one of the best out of the series. Yes, I do love me some Fast and the Furious. Hate me for it. I don't really care. Anyway, Gina Carano used to do cool stuff, and then we all came to find out that she was a big-time conspiracy theory believer, and I would say calling her conservative would be a little bit disrespectful to conservatives, but she believes a lot of things about the world that are pretty messed up. So that being said, she has been like, her whole career got tanked because not only she's a person who believes in conservative ideals for sure, but also she takes it to the nth degree with the conspiracy theories and a lot of the hate and a little bit, as everybody says, it seems to be really popular right now, a little dab of the Nazi, a little dab of the N-word, and not the other, and not that N-word. But Sean Strickland was at press availability for whatever fucking UFC event is happening. Unfortunately, I know exactly where it's happening. It's happening here in Houston. But he went on to say nobody gives a fuck about women's sports. He thinks that it's kind of wild that women have been empowered to the point where they've pretty much ruined society. He called Ronda Rousey the B word, and said that she's won a lot of fights, but she lost a few fights to her husband, obviously making fun of the fact that Ronda Rousey was domestically abused in her relationship. I think her ex-husband is like a fighter or something like that. And then he went on to talk about Bad Bunny, and he pretended like he didn't know who Bad Bunny was. He called him a woman to begin with, and then he also proceeded to call him the F slur for gay people like 3 times. And then he finished it off with being like, how can the NFL, he's like, I feel like the NFL gets in a circle. He sounded like literally a 72-year-old grandfather, like your super racist grandfather that comes to Thanksgiving and makes everything awkward for people who have multiple brain cells left and the dementia hasn't eroded away their brain. He went on to say the NFL gets in like a circle every single year and they figure out how they can try and ruin football because now football is like super gay and that's what's ruined football, which I don't know how to tell you this, but gay people play professional sports. There are gay fighters in the UFC. There are gay football players. There are gay hockey players and soccer players and basketball players as well. So I guess that's going to come up. I think that'll be a bit of a shock for Sean when he finds out that he's probably gotten his ass whooped by like a gay guy before. He just didn't know it. But he said, how about we have a gay foreigner who doesn't speak fucking English do the halftime show as his explanation for what he thinks the NFL does when they get in a circle. And then he went on to talk about gay people, as these types tend to do. He's like, mental illness is real. The way I feel about gays is pretty simple. If you're fucking gay, go suck the peen. But he said the C word for it. I don't want to, I like having my YouTube channel. I don't actually know any of the rules in terms of like words I can and cannot say, but I have a feeling that that's not one of them. We're trying to be a family friendly show. That's why I curse on here all the time. And then he said he's cool with gay people. He's like, sometimes you got to let your R word flag fly. R word being the slur for people who suffer from Down syndrome. So yeah. He said, you want, and then continued, this is like at a certain point, if you're a black person, you kind of like, it kind of malaises over you because once you hear like a person, me personally, like when you hear dumb people spout hateful things, you get to the point where they kind of sound like a teacher in any adult that's in the Charlie Brown universe where they're like, womp, 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 because it's just like, hey man, I get it, bro. You have a single digit number of brain cells. I get it. Hey, bro, like it's okay. It's actually not okay, but it's okay. Then he went on to say, I just wanted to read off some of the stuff that I could read because I need you to understand the kind of man that Sean Strickland wants you to know that he is. You want people to give a fuck in reference to people getting kidnapped and taken off the streets. You make it an attractive blonde woman People will give a fuck. If it's the Quisha from Compton, nobody gives a fuck. Which, in some shades of people caring about black people in terms of like accruing justice, somehow Sean Strickland, in his stupidity, cycled into a correct statement about about America, or about just like the legal system in general, about policing. You know what I mean? And once again, this is Sean Strickland. This is who he wants you to believe he is, or who he actually is. And he said, like I said, Sean Strickland said all those horrible things for two reasons. He really believes it, or he really wants you to believe that he believes it. Either path leads to the same conclusion for me personally. This is my personal perspective when I hear this kind of stuff. Sean Strickland is a weak human being in a lot of ways. Weakness has a beautiful way of displaying itself physically and mentally. And obviously, Sean Strickland suffers in the mental portion of it. He is a professional fighter. He has won a lot of fights. He's a champion because he has great physical prowess. And one could even say maybe his weakness is part of his physical strength. The beauty of that weakness in terms of Sean's ability is he actually attracts other weak people to come out and defend him, so you can learn people. I've always said on this show, and I think I said just in general, the racist, homophobe, horrible, hateful person that hides is the coward to me. The person who's willing to call me the N-word to my face, a lot braver than the person who covers his face with the Klansman hood for whatever reason. So I think that's important to take away from this as well. Sean Strickland does a real good job of throwing out the bait and reeling out all the bad people. Not necessarily bad people. Well, no, they are bad people, but they're also like weak individuals that we have within our society because their inability to process the real world is holding back society as a whole. Like Sean Strickland's mentality holds back society. He lives in a world that has been contributed to, built in a lot of ways by women, by gay people, by trans people, by black people. And he just doesn't get it. And that weakness is the same weakness that held this country back for such a long period of time, to the point where guys like Jesse Jackson had to take to the streets, along with Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X and a series of other people, to fight for basic human rights. And then when that happened, all of a sudden, you know, America changed forever and got to the point where it is the juggernaut that it is today. Unfortunately, that hate has bubbled its way back up to the top. And we do have to play a part in making sure that people like Sean understand that this society, and this is if you want this kind of society, right? Like, I want a society where people like Sean Strickland are begging for coins on the side of the road. I don't know about you. Sean Strickland got a lot of money. He got a lot more money than a lot of people who are significantly stronger and better than him as a human being. And I bring it back to the point that I made before. Sean said these horrible things for two reasons. He actually believes them, or what I believe to be significantly worse, he's okay with saying them as long as it ends up with him getting money. So, forms of weakness that we're talking about here. Sean Strickland will do anything for money, which is Sean Strickland. If he is saying all these horrible, horrendous things that demean and take away the humanity of other people who live in this world that is supposed to be free, that same freedom that Sean Strickland claims to be about, if he lives in this world and he says those things and he believes those things, his weakness is his hatred. His hatred stops him from moving forward. It holds back society. He's a weight holding us back as a human, as well, really as in America, but as a world as well, because he inspires other people to be hateful, right? The other part is, if he's cool with saying that, knowing that it will draw attention to the fight, draw attention to the press conference, and not only that, but like we live in a world now, it's going to get him fans. It's going to get him more fans. If he's okay with walking that path like we've seen so many other people do, that is a form of weakness that I literally cannot understand. To sell your soul for money. And it's so funny that he called Ronda Rousey a B-word when I can't think of a weaker, more bitch-made thing to do than to say those things for money. For money. He's going to get paid no matter what, right? He's a fighter. He wins fights. Fighters who win fights typically get more fights and get more money. The greed has made him bitch made, and that's crazy to me. It's a level of soft and weak that I don't think a lot of people really can grasp. His desperation for the attention that leads to him getting more money. His desperation for the attention that leads for him to be validated in the horrible ideas that he holds in his head. The weakness in his head, the hatred in his head that holds back not only himself from seeing a better world and living in a better world, but holds me back from living in a better world. Can't think. It's crazy to sit there and you see a person who fights professionally at such a high level, and all you see is a little weakling. All you see is a person that has no ability to actually tell you why a group of people are bad, other than he doesn't like it, right? And then on top of that, he tries to hide behind the fact that he's like, I think you should be able to do whatever you want. I think you should be able to live however you want to, as long as it's not away from me. That is a cowardly way to hate. He hates like a coward too. That's crazy to me, man. Anyway, if you're a young man or woman or boy out there, you're gonna meet a lot of Sean Stricklands in your life, and I think you need to understand. And this goes for any person of any age. You're gonna meet a lot of people that are like this. If you talk to older people of color, older black men, older black women, older Hispanic men, Hispanic women, they've met many Sean Stricklands in their lives. And I'll say this much to you. The way you make a better society, the way you make a better America, is making sure that people like Sean Strickland suffer. And I don't mean like go and like burn his house down or whatever, or attack him or anything like that. But like I said before, Sean Strickland should be begging for coins on the side of the road. Sean Strickland probably, look, in a better world, Sean Strickland is not even like allowed within the city limits of cities in America, because people like him, like they used to exile people way back in the day, but it's something that I feel like a better world could benefit from, in terms of like, there's only so much you can do to change and warp people's minds. And I say that knowing, ironically enough, that him talking about Ronda Rousey is a person who, by her own admission, was formerly radicalized into conspiracy theories that align with like Nazi propaganda, white supremacist propaganda, and she claims that she is de-radicalized herself. I cannot tell you what Ronda's been up to since she retired, because once I started hearing like all the crazy racist stuff, I just kind of tuned out, because the best thing you can do is like leave those kind of people alone to a certain degree, but like make sure that everybody knows who they are. And I just want you to, and people who listen to this podcast, however many it may be, whether it be 15-5 or 20-something or whatever, I just want you to know that Sean Strickland, regardless of how many people he knocks out in fights, regardless of how many guns that he has in his house, which he has a bunch, I've seen videos of his house before, regardless of how many 1776 shirts that he has, or regardless of how many times that he claims he loves America, he loves freedom, he is weak. He's weak. He hurts himself with his weakness. And unfortunately, his weakness taps into the weakness of other human beings, right? Like, there's going to be a good chunk of people who are going to see Sean Strickland and they're going to be like, I like the way that guy talks. Those are the type of people, those types of people exist. And for us to progress forward, yes, we do need to interact with those groups of people and try to help and try to understand holistically like how they came to this conclusion, and help them understand that a better world is a place where everybody is free. So Sean is not actually interested in freedom. I just want that to also be a reminder. He talks about how he loves 1776. He talks about how he's a big gun rights advocate. He's not interested in actual freedom. Nobody who talks the way that Sean talks about another human being is interested in freedom. And I just want you to remember that. He's the kind of guy that wears his 1776 shirt and totes his guns around, and then he roots for people to lose their rights as human beings in America. So, the most un-American type of American known to man. Like I said, that's it. Watching whatever UFC pay-per-view is happening this weekend, that's what I'm assuming this blew up, in whatever network it's on. is only going to help Sean generate more money. It's only going to help the UFC generate more money. And I think when you think about it in the whole, and I know a lot of you guys are going to want to watch the fight so he can go get watch him go get his head knocked off, right? Some of you are going to watch it regardless. I say to you, if you're a person that didn't know who Sean Strickland was before I started talking about him or before you saw him on Twitter, remember the number one way to make sure that Sean Strickland doesn't benefit from his hate is letting him know that it actually hurt his ability to make money. His hurt, and it's not going to hurt this time because his money's locked in place, right? Sean could lose this weekend, whatever it may be, but using your free will to not watch him is going to let the UFC know that he's poison, like he's bad goods, and I'm going to be honest with you, it's going to take a lot for that to be the case when it comes to Sean, because everything that Sean says, I have no reason to believe that Dana White does not also agree. Dana White, who is the head guy for the UFC, he's a big time Trump supporter, so he aligns a lot with what Sean Strickland lines up with, which is ironic because he employs a lot of people of color, but that's typical of people who side with oppression. Anyway, Dana White also, don't forget, just to give you some kind of context, Dana White is a man who has been caught on video slapping his wife in the middle of a club, and he, kind of blased over it, right? Said that we don't understand their relationship kind of deal. I can't imagine what he does when he thinks nobody else is looking. But that's not for me to imagine. That's not for me to speculate. I think there's something to be said about the quality of a man that's in charge and about a type of man who would say those type of things, mean them or not mean them, and say them because he knows it'll generate money for him. Two very distinct forms of weakness, but weakness nonetheless. And I wish nothing but the absolute worst for Sean Strickland because he's also extremely racist. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about football. No, actually, wait. Which order am I supposed to do it in? I think No. We're going to talk about Unrivaled. Sorry, I messed that up. That's on me. We got Unrivaled, my Unrivaled reaction section of the show where we talk about Unrivaled. If you're unfamiliar with Unrivaled, it is a 3v3 women's basketball league that has been created and controlled not only by two WNBA players in Nafesia Collier and Breanna Stewart, but also each player that plays in the league owns a portion of the league. So it is a player led and owned league when it's all said and done. So it is quite possibly the best thing that you could support. It is quite possibly one of the best leagues that you can support as a sports fan overall. Sorry, I had to stand up from that chair. It's like squeaking hard. I know I'm fat, but I'm not that fat, bro. But nonetheless, Unrivaled is a league that deserves your support. If you're interested in trying to get into sports in general, women's basketball is always great. It's super entertaining in general, and you'll also be a part of a revolution that's happening in sports now. We'll talk about something else that happened ESPN-wise a little bit later on in the show, but the rise of women's basketball in general and women's sports in general continues even in this time where it feels like everybody else is being kind of stamped down. There's an effort by a group of people to not only correctly represent women's sports for the first time in a long time, but on top of that, support it like adequately with the way that it should be supported. So we take it from the top. If you're familiar with Unrivaled, you already know this. The Lacers have been kind of running away with the league so far. They are they're currently 9-2 on the season overall. If you remember the Lunar Owls, which was led by Nafesia Collier, who couldn't compete this season. She's the founder of the league, but she couldn't compete this past year or this current season because of double ankle surgery, which I'm sure she's been putting off for a really long time and finally has a chance to get it done. But the Laces are currently in first place and have been in first place, I want to say, since like week 4 or something like that. They had one of the biggest winning streaks so far in Unrivaled history. I think it was like 5 in a row or something, and the Lunar Owls had like a massive one. because they went 13-1 all the way to the end of the season. The Phantom, who are a team that didn't make the playoffs last year and has now had a major comeback, mainly at the hands of Kelsey Plum going out there and dominating in terms of the scoring overall, and then some retooling of the team in general. But they're 8-3 so far, and they've been basically on the way up for a good chunk of time. Their 4-game winning streak is currently alive right now, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on, but they have a key game coming up. But in the midst are the team led by the other founder of Unrivaled, which is Breanna Stewart. Their team has been killing it. They've essentially added Alicia Gray to their roster, and Alicia Gray is an amazing isolation player when it comes to women's basketball, and it has panned out for them big time because now they have a top-down approach where they have a guard who can do a ton of damage, and then they have Breanna Stewart, who has a ton of versatility in her game to attack from all 3 levels. But after those guys, it's the Breeze, the team that has led the they were the youngest roster when they started off this season. They had a lot of the rising stars in the WNBA, some of the biggest names in women's basketball that are on the way up as well in terms of Paige Beckers, Dominique Malonga. They have Rickea Jackson, who we still haven't gotten word on. I'm assuming she's done for the season, even if I haven't gotten word on that. But Breeze has been one of the teams that a lot of people have been excited about because not only are they creating really close games against teams that are veteran-led squads, but on top of that, they're actually winning. They're 5-6 on the season. That 5-6 is a little bit deceptive. We can talk about it now. So the Breeze have played 8 games, and the last 8 games that they have played, they have won 3 of those last 8. So they started off hot, and now they are fizzling hard on the back half of the season. And when it's all said and done, there's a logical explanation for why it's happening, but it does suck because it is in turn a massive issue. Not only for it's not an issue for the league overall, but it is an issue for the Breeze because it does come down to them making some major changes. Like I said, the Breeze have only won 3 of their last 8 games. They have won 1 of their last 5. They also have some of the biggest dubs of the season so far. They beat the Mist, the team that's currently in second place, that only has 4 losses on the year. They beat them by 19 points. They dismantled the Rose when they were down a center in one of their games by 25 points. That's the team that's currently below them. And they also lost damn near every major player on their team except Paige Beckers and Dominique Malonga. They lose Ari McDonald, who was coming off the bench for them. Huge points that she was able to score on a regular basis. There has been no update on Rickea Jackson, but we have to assume that she's out for the year. The Breeze are essentially changing their entire approach to winning games that they've had all season. They were a team that was 1 guard, 2 bigs, essentially, to start off. Rickea Jackson playing the power forward position and Dominique Malonga playing the true center spot. That was pivotal for the Breeze ability to win because Paige was so good in the isolation and able to get to her mid-range shot so consistently. Dominique Malonga does have 3 levels of scoring, but typically a lot of her stuff is she's really good at cutting. She does a great job of setting screens. When she attacks the basket, she usually ends up finishing, and on top of that, she's a great defender. Combine her with Rickea Jackson, who does a great job on defense against players who have, who are smaller than her and bigger than her. Plus, she has the ability to shoot and finish around the hoop. And now you lose Rickea Jackson, and they have to make some changes. They got the trade that we mentioned last week with Courtney Williams, adding her to the team. And Courtney's been a huge boost. She played 18 minutes in her first game in Unrivaled so far with the Breeze. But the problem is that swapping Courtney Williams for Rickea Jackson is kind of thrown off the alignment of the team as a whole because now they've lost their physical size advantage on the glass, and it's now fruiting itself in kind of dismantling how well they can play defense over the course of an entire game. Courtney Williams is great up front, but her not being a center is what is kind of telling itself to be the biggest issue. Now, they have to find a way to go from being a big-centric team, because they also have Cameron Brink coming off the bench, which is huge. Now they have to focus on being a guard-centric team, kind of running stuff through Kate Martin, Courtney Williams, Paige Beckers, and then finding ways to get points from the guards to a level that they can actually hold on to their playoff spot. I legitimately believe they are in danger of falling I wouldn't say falling out of the playoff spot, but going from tied from where they are right now to dropping all the way to potentially being where the Vinyl are, which is dead last, because the top 6 teams do make the playoffs. Only 2 teams won't make it. I'll tell you why I don't think the Hive will really have like a legitimate chance. But yeah, the Breeze are a team that has been just destroyed by injuries and freak stuff that has happened, because there's no way you could have calculated that Rickea Jackson's boyfriend was going to stalk her all the way from LA to Miami and then try and use his car as a weapon to run her off the road and do who knows what when he got to her. Luckily, the cops were able to get Pierce and stop him from doing something that stop him from doing something to Rickea that could have affected her career and her life overall when it was all said and done. But crazy stuff. But it has affected the Breeze like massively in terms of what's going on in the Unrivaled season so far. Other stuff going on in Unrivaled. The Rose are going to have Angel Reese coming back. She starts play tomorrow, which is Friday, February 20th. She is going to be available to play, and she'll be playing in her first game. There's been a lot of hype around it because obviously Angel Reese has a huge following online. She's really popular, and she's a good basketball player to go along with that. She can add a huge layer that the Rose honestly need, because we haven't seen as much production as we like to see out of Kalia Copper, as she's still kind of recovering from like an ankle injury she had earlier this season, I think, and still trying to find her rhythm a little bit. But having Shakira Austin be able to sub out of a game and then let's be real, Shakira is going to be coming off the bench for the Rose now, and have her, what she's shown this entire season so far, she's got like a great offensive game. The issue has been having the energy to play defense at a high level, and that's obviously affected by the fact that she had to play center, 3v3 center for a 72-foot court the entirety of like 3 games, I think, so far this season, which is huge. But having Chelsea Gray is going to go a long way. Chelsea Gray and Angel Reese have like a great connection. And then obviously what we saw from Angel Reese last Unrivaled season into her Chicago Sky season into this season coming up, plus she's well rested. This could be like we saw last season where the Rose were, down bad early on and then skyrocketed all the way towards the top of the rankings when it was all said and done, because as you see here, it's only 2 games away from the Laces are only 1 game ahead of the Phantom and only 2 games ahead of the Mist, and 4 games is a lot to overcome. There's no way that the Rose can end up in first place when it's all said and done, but if things break the right way, they could end up in second, because there's only 3 games left on the season for every team in Unrivaled so far, and 3 games and 3 wins for the Rose and 3 losses for the Phantom could force a tie for second place. And you never know. Anyway, being in the top 3 seeds is going to be the most important part, which means the Breeze and the Mist are in striking distance for the Rose, and that could go a long way in terms of ending up on the right side of the tournament bracket and possibly making a run at being back-to-back champions, especially with Angel Reese fully healthy. So, other stuff, really, really sad stuff. The Hive might be the worst team in the history of Unrivaled. So we're 2 games into we're 2 seasons into Unrivaled, a season and a half into Unrivaled, and the Hive have a negative point differential that I feel like can only be explained this way. So the Rose, Vinyl, and Lunar Owls all have negative point differentials on the season so far. If you're unfamiliar with sports, point differentials are basically how many points did you score to how many points you surrendered. Typically, teams with losing records have negative point differentials because they've been outscored in all their games. But for the most part, the biggest issue is that if you took the Rose, Vinyl, and Lunar Owls and combined their point differential together, you would get negative 126. The Hive point differential by themselves is negative 103. The gap should not be that close. It has been a tough year for Hive, which honestly has too many young players on it, and I think that's what the issue is. And they're going to be a team that's going, because the way that Unrivaled works, the coaches kind of select and shuffle players around, and you can make some protections based off how you finish in the regular season. But next year, the Hive have to make a massive overhaul. And I know they started off the season with an interesting approach to how they wanted to run the team, in terms of like Kelsey Mitchell not being necessarily the focal point of everything, and having Sonia Citron go out there and do kind of what she does with the Mystic, which is her WNBA team, where she kind of has the green light from wherever. But I think it's more important that obviously Kelsey Mitchell is probably going to be one of the teams that they keep, or one of the players that they keep for next season. But I think the approach to start the year was so bad that it actually has eliminated the Hive, even though not officially eliminated, because they're only one game out of the last playoff spot, which is the crazy part about all this. Like, you look at it's 9-8-7, 5-5, 4-3, 3. And that was the big takeaway that I had when I was doing my breakdown for everything. This is way closer than it was last season. Like, last season, it felt like it was pretty definitive in terms of like who were the good teams and who were the bad teams. And the talent redistribution every single year amongst the teams has paid off huge dividends. And let's be real, the Lunar Owls having like a massive loss with Nafisia Collier being out for the entire season. She was the MVP of Unrivaled last year. She was almost MVP of the WNBA this past season as well. And not having her would have made this even more erratic of a season, because it feels like the Lunar Owls would have had a shot versus every single team that's in the league this year if they had Nafisia Collier. They'd probably be towards the top of the rankings when it was all said and done. But that's just a sign of how tough Unrivaled is as a whole. They've added in a lot of fresh blood in terms of like new players who have different skills and unique abilities. We're seeing a lot of players emerge in terms of what they're capable of doing outside of the strict controls, the constraints of their WNBA teams. Obviously, 5v5 basketball is a little bit more tactical in a lot of different ways, but I think Unrivaled is doing a great job of showing how many players can have like great individual skills if they were allowed to touch the ball just a little bit more. Because 3v3, missing 4 players on both in total from 5v5 means that everybody else usually touches the ball a little bit more, and I think that goes a long way to seeing the development of players, obviously at a young age, because they're getting more reps against high level competition too. So but yeah, Hive and Lunar Owls are currently at the bottom of the league, and they've been at the bottom basically from the jump. And they're both 3-8. They both play each other the final night, or they play each other the final night of the regular season. Now, depending on what happens with the Vinyl, who definitely got a massive boost from having Sanaya Rivers join their team. Sanaya is a great defender, plus her ability to drive to the basket is at a high level. She's a tall player who has great explosion in her legs, and that's a really rare combination of skills, especially when it comes to comparing her to her peers in Unrivaled, who are some of the best women's basketball players on the planet, right? And that's the tough part, man. That's the tough part about trying to figure out currently Lunar Owls, who it feels like they're having a drastically different season than Hive, because theirs is more injury-based. Hive just comes off like they are the team that doesn't have the talent to stack up against every single team in Unrivaled so far. But yeah, it has been an exciting Unrivaled season outside of the situation that's going on at the bottom. This season, the top 3 seeds are, like I said, are separated by 1 win from each other, 9, 8, and 7 with the Laces, Phantom, and Mist. And then the Phantom and Laces actually play each other on Friday as well. So that's a massive game for everybody, essentially, because if the Laces lose, it will make a tie at the top of the standings, which I think hasn't been the case since like week 3 or like the 3rd game of the season or something like that. But it'll be massive for the season overall, and it gives a shot for the Breeze and the Rose to actually take a massive jump into contention for the top 3 spots. And I think it would backdoor clinch playoffs for either one of the teams. I can't remember. It might backdoor clinch the playoffs for the Breeze and the Rose when it's all said and done. But yeah, the 4C being a tie between Rose and Breeze is going to be huge too. And Angel Reese coming in for the Rose at a clutch time where the Breeze are kind of falling apart and spiraling it doesn't look good for the Breeze. We'll see. Vinyl, like I said, only has 1 game over Hive and Lunar Owls, despite being the significantly better team, in my opinion. They just haven't been able to win a lot of these close games, and it's brutal, but that is the point of this league. It's supposed to be fewer teams, higher condensed quality of players, and create some of these key matchups, and it has been so far. So, yeah, only 3 games left, and it's still pretty tight in terms of what's going to be happening. So, yeah. What else do I have? Oh, the 1v1 tournament, man. So, I had a couple notes. I had it written down here. The 1v1 tournament, if you guys didn't pay attention or you're watching the NBA All-Star game, I totally understand. But at the same time, Unrivaled did a pretty smart thing. I think Unrivaled did and has done. They did this last season as well. If you guys don't know, basically they have a 1v1 tournament, and it's supposed to be like a replacement for their All-Star break, essentially, because it doesn't make sense to do an All-Star team game format for a league that is filled with All-Stars. Like, legitimately, I think like 100%. Oh, I take that back. Outside of no, because she wasn't an All-Star this year. I think like 90% of the All-Stars in the WNBA are also in Unrivaled. So it's kind of like, what's the point of naming an all-star team and then playing an extra game? And then especially if you're going to get results like you saw or like you see typically with the NBA all-star game when it's all said and done, why do that? Instead, let's do something that's even more harrowing, something unique, something that looks great on social, and then something that also has a massive grand prize at the end of it. So the Unrivaled all-star break format, depending upon who partakes in the 1v1 tournament, the winner gets $200,000. The semifinalists, I think, get $50,000, and then the quarterfinalists got $25,000. So a lot of people got paid off. A lot of people made some big bread because that's big bread for any person outside of an NBA player, and even I think an NFL player would admit playing in a 1v1 tournament and winning $200,000, basically winning 4 games over the course of 2 nights, and getting $200,000 is a good day's work for a whole lot of money. But yeah, that's essentially what the format is. And they actually made some adjustments from last season. That was the one thing that I really enjoyed. The adjustments that the Unrivaled 1v1 format had. Last year, the bigs dominated in this tournament just because they got matched up against guards that they were almost a foot taller than a good chunk of the time. And instead this year, they basically put all the bigs in one quadrant of the 4 quadrants of the 1v1 tournament. So the guards played against the guards, players played against people who were similar size to them until they got to a certain point, and then each quadrant kind of was like a representation of the positions or like body types, body sizes in the league overall. And I like that format a lot. I thought it was good because it gave the bigs a chance to display some of their ball handling skills as well, as opposed to just backing down the bigs or trying to blow by them or whatever. And so there was a lot of versatility. And on top of that, it's not too often that bigs play that long a period of time against one individual player in that many successive plays. So it was a different perspective, because I think a lot of these ladies would tell you there's not too often that they've played basketball in their eye level with the person that they're playing defense against or scoring against. And it does something different for the bigs up front. But it paid off big time because there was a good mix of guards and power forwards and point guards that made it all the way to the semifinals. And then the finals themselves were 2 guards. It was 2 guards. Alicia Gray is a massive guard in women's basketball. I think she's like 6'1" or something like that. And then Chelsea Gray, not related, by the way. They want you to know they're not related, even though they make jokes that they're cousins because everybody in the league, they got love for each other for the most part. But Chelsea Gray and Alicia Gray face off against each other. Alicia Gray gets out to a massive lead, and Chelsea Gray comes back, I think, down 8 points to win. She comes back because they were going to 7. So it's 3 games to 7 in the finals. Everything else was literally just 11 points. It was single elimination to 11 points. In the finals was best 2 out of 3 to 7, and massive comeback from Chelsea Gray after getting demolished in the first game versus Alicia Gray. And you got the chance to see a ton of skill. There was a lot of people who chose to lean into all the negative stuff that happened, where they were like players who reacted very harshly to losing games in certain cases. I know they were trying to pretend that Paige Beckers lost her shit when she lost to Chelsea Gray, but what she was calling for is that she was basically, because it's take back, so it's you have to take the ball back over the 3-point line like you do when you play 1v1 or whatever. And they were Paige was saying Chelsea didn't step back over the line with both of her feet before she drove in and scored the game-winning jumper on Paige, and she kind of was upset about it. But then she dapped up Chelsea Gray and showed love to her, and then just walked off like everybody else did in the tournament when they lost. But on the internet, there was too many people trying to concern themselves with, that's the problem when it comes to sports sometimes. And honestly, that's kind of what I was going to lead into this whole conversation. Everything that was going on with the 1v1 tournament and people being like, why won't the NBA do this? Why won't the NBA do this? It's because not only NBA players play 1v1 all the time. They play 1v1 and 3v3 all the time in practice, away from cameras. Not because they're not because they're running from the grind or afraid of the competition or anything like that. It's because the fans don't know how to act, bro. Like, if you go out there and you played in a 1v1 tournament full of all NBA players and you end up in some of the situations that some of these players did, like, for instance, Natisha Heidemann got skunked 11-0 in the second round of this tournament. Veronica Burton cooked somebody 11-0, and then Courtney Williams lost 11-0 in her game. She actually didn't even get a chance to, like, play offense. That's how bad she got beaten. And they laughed it off. Like, they turned it into content on their stream while they were streaming the 1v1 tournament. They made a bunch of jokes about it on the internet, and everybody was in their comments being like, oh man, that sucks that it happened to you, but like, we know that you're a baller. Like, people know that you can hoop. What will happen in the NBA with the way that fans are for sports in general, and like the toxicity of fans, this is the kind of shit that Adam Silver talks about, how like the modern NBA player sees so much negativity because it's so easy to make fun of these guys, because you can sit there and be like, oh, this guy's super tall, he's rich, he's handsome, all this kind of stuff. And it does come off like it is jealousy. Like, it literally comes off like there are so many fans who dedicate their time to like clowning dudes who play professional basketball at a level that they have never even contemplated being possible. And their whole goal is to be like, look, this guy sucks. He can't even dribble left. Like, people tried to make up that Jaylen Brown couldn't dribble with his left hand and said that was why the Celtics couldn't win a championship, and then they won the championship, ironically enough. But the important part that I was sitting there saying is the important thing to take away from that is, like, Jaylen Brown is an elite level basketball player. He could dribble, he could beat you in 1v1 with the hand that you say he can't dribble with. But the way that people act online, I wouldn't, if I was an NBA player, I wouldn't want to do it either, because there's nobody who's going to be chill about it, bro. Like, everybody's going to be a complete asshole. Like, you lose basketball games, bro. Like, there's this imaginary world that fans have made up where, like, oh, the top dog always wins. No. Michael Jordan never lost in clutch situations. It's like Michael Jordan did lose in clutch situations, bro. Michael Jordan lost games. He didn't go undefeated for the entirety of his, like, 9-year NBA career, whatever. How many years? I think it was like 10 or 12 or something. He didn't go undefeated, bro. Like, this is real life. Other people work hard to get good at stuff. And I feel like a lot of people were online being like, see, Unrivaled's out there. I like the publicity. And I feel like it was a brilliant idea because there was a lot of clips that came out of it in terms of, like, look at the handles that a lot of these players were showing off. Look at the moves that people were showing off in the post. Look at the intensity. A lot of guys, and I say this as I met a dude this season. I met a dude like 2 days ago who was talking about how he missed how the NBA used to be, because he's a big LeBron fan and he knows that his fave is on his way out, kind of deal. And he doesn't like this current era of LeBron where he's just kind of like, he's not focused on winning a championship. He's kind of being like he's not being lackadaisical or anything like that, but it's just like, we had a whole conversation about how LeBron is at a different time frame in terms of like what he can and cannot turn on, right? We're getting close to the end of the NBA season, and LeBron knows that he's got to get ready for the playoffs when it's all said and done. And he can't do what he used to do 20 years ago, literally 20 years ago. And that's okay. The other thing is, we talked about how, he talked about there's no face of the league and all this kind of stuff like that, because there's people who need like a face of the league for some reason, instead of being, and I feel like it goes back to this idea of like, hey man, you should just watch the games. Like, when you get into conversations about face of the league, it comes off like, I don't watch the games, I like the stories, right? Like, there's so many people who are more concerned about what happens at the trade deadline, and they don't actually even watch the games enough to actually be concerned about what happens at the trade deadlines. I feel like that happens so often when we're having this conversation about basketball, but I digress. the Unrivaled 1v1 tournament was amazing. A lot of other people gave it its props. A lot of other people paid mad respect to it, and I appreciate that because the stories coming out early on were about how the football season was affecting the Unrivaled ratings, which it was. There's no question about it whatsoever. Football season affects the ratings of every single thing that is around it. I promise you that. Plus, Unrivaled did plus the entirety of the tournament, a lot of people made money. Like, for instance, Chelsea Gray won the 1v1 tournament when it was all said and done, and she made, I want to say, what, $50,000? She made $200,000. And her annual salary with the Aces is $250,000. And we'll talk about the WNBA PA a little bit later on. But yeah, like that, I feel like that's pivotal, bro. In so much of this league, like they had a competition about like at the halfway point of the season, whoever is leading this free throw competition in terms of like accuracy and number of free throws made is going to win like $10,000 or something like that. And Paige Beckers won it. Paige was like, I'm just going to donate all of it because Paige is a person who makes money off the court. Like she has a Nike deal. She probably has a signature shoe on the way. And she has like Nike merch that she sells. She's got a contract signed. She got that. $10,000 is not as much to her as it could be to somebody else. But a lot of the Unrivaled tournament is what basketball could truly be. I think a lot of people enjoy the fact that when it comes to like women's basketball in general, this goes to like college, WNBA, and at the level that we're at right now with Unrivaled, the way that fouls are called. Like there's not phantom fouls that happen like there are in the NBA where it's like you weren't at a perfect 45-degree angle when you started defending this guy with the ball, and so we'll be calling a foul and they'll get 2 shots at the free throw. Like there's such a large percentage of points in NBA basketball games that are just free throws being made on fouls where somebody made contact with somebody while they were driving. And in the W and in Unrivaled, there's a lot more contact, and in the playoffs, the contact gets even more intense, especially like as you get closer to the rim and stuff like that, while also still being able to show off the agility, the shooting, the ability to drive, and the drive moves along with it. And it feels like the NBA could definitely take some lessons from how Unrivaled officiates, how the WNBA is officiated, and a lot of people would be really honest about that, I think. But yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say about Unrivaled. The 1v1 tournament was awesome. The biggest thing that I took away from it was that Chelsea, aka the point god, is really having like a crazy year. She's WNBA champion with the Aces plus WNBA champion with the Aces plus Unrivaled 1v1 champion. She's also like a year, she won the first season of Unrivaled. She was the MVP in the finals there. Then she won the WNBA championship, which is like her third in 4 years. Now she's the 1v1 champion and has a chance to win another Unrivaled championship. Just a crazy run from a ridiculously good player that if we lived in a little bit of a better world would get a lot more attention than certain other players. So, yeah, I think some of that definitely has to do with how Chelsea breaks down as like a human being. She's a black woman who is gay and also fucking hoops. Legitimately, never seen a person who has a running gait like Chelsea does, where her feet come like 2 inches off the ground, and yet somehow she's always in position to defend. Legitimately insane. And has a crazy pullback jumper that I enjoy watching. So, Aaliyah Boston killed it in this 1v1 tournament. If there was somebody else that would have made it to the finals, it would have been her. She got beat by Alicia Gray. I think Aaliyah Boston, one, for me personally, I've gained so much more respect for her game as a basketball player because when she first started out, those first 2 years were rough. Rough for me. I felt like she was moving towards bust territory, but now what we're seeing from what she did last year with the Fever into what she's doing now with the Phantom and how Phantom is like completely flipped the way that they play basketball, and Aaliyah Boston is a huge part of that. She beat Aaliyah Edwards, who made it to the finals last year, who I think is one of the best players in the WNBA and in Unrivaled. And then she also beat Breonna Stewart, WNBA champion, multi-time college champion, one of the best basketball players on the planet. She beat her in a 1v1 game all the way to the finals. It was amazing to see, and if there's somebody who had their profile raised to another level, it is Aaliyah Boston. Shout out to her. But yeah. Moving on. Every time I try and smoke this cigar, it is dead. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure that this text is not like crazy important. Nope, I gotta. That is important, but I cannot respond to it right now. We'll take a light break right here, a lighter break. If you need to go to the bathroom, now's the time to do it. Although, if I'm on your phone right now, I guess it doesn't matter. But, yeah, man. Unrivaled, so much fun. Shout out to my boy Carlos. He told me that I should talk about women's basketball more on the pod just because he knows that I watch it in my free time. And it's like my fun sport where my other friends don't really check it out. I will say this. My friend Richie seems like he pays attention to it a little bit more now that I've been telling him about it for like years and stuff like that. And my boy Snowman was checking it out before he passed away. So shout out to him. Me and Snowman also used to bond over calling Sean Strickland a fucking shithead because that's what he is. Anyway, it's funny when people are dumb, isn't it? I'm kidding. Moving on. Let's go to the main page. Let's talk about some sports. We talked about Sean Strickland already. Let's talk about the NFL as a whole right now. There's two major stories I think are coming out right now. Overall, the Dolphins have a new head coach. It's the former offensive coordinator for the Packers. They got to make major moves, and they cut Bradley Chubb, Tyreek Hill, and one more. Oh, Westbrook Akinu, who is former wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans. I had big hopes for him when he went to the Dolphins, and that didn't shake out for him because reasons. I will say this, they cut all three of these players. Two of those are the most expensive players on their entire payroll so far. Well, they're two of the highest paid players on the payroll, and they only, after cutting all three of those guys, they only got like $3.1 million of cap space, which, in terms of being competitive in free agency, not gonna help. Not gonna help at all. There is one person being cut that would help a lot, though. That's not for me to say. Never gonna root against Tua because I too am left-handed. Got to support him, but it'll be interesting because they've already talked about how there's going to be competition at the quarterback position. Have to wonder what happens at the start of the season. Also have to assume the Dolphins are going to be in the mix for a quarterback in the upcoming draft, which I guess good luck to them on that one. It's been an interesting quarterback evaluation so far in the draft section. I don't think very many people believe in Mendoza, which is really funny to me. But we'll see what happens when it's all said and done. Let's talk about the MLBPA. So the MLBPA, which is I think the second or third, me and Martin, when we did this show together, he's the first co-host I ever had when I was doing like big time stuff. We used to talk about the MLB all the time because I think in 2020 there was negotiations for the current CBA. And we used to talk about all the time about how the nastiest relationship in sports to from sports to union is the MLBPA and the MLB. There is no group of people who have a nastier connection to each other than the MLBPA and the MLB. And then we talked about how we both believe that is how it should be. You should not be like in simpatico about a lot of stuff. There should be some fight, some struggle between these two sides, because this is deciding like generational wealth for people who are dedicating their lives to playing baseball. And there should be some conflict, but that's not what we're here to talk about. An investigation was launched after a whistleblower claim was made to the Federal Labor Bureau, to the U.S. government, and it was about the MLBPA's executive board misappropriating funds potentially, and the investigation in the process of that somehow, some way revealed that Tony Clark, who is the executive for the MLBPA, is having an inappropriate relationship. Well, maybe had. Don't know if it's current. Have to imagine maybe a couple numbers have been blocked. If you've heard this story, Tony Clark, who's a former MLB player, I think he's the first MLB player to be the head of the Players Association as well. He was found to be having an inappropriate relationship with his sister-in-law. So his wife's sister, from what everybody has been saying. An inappropriate relationship has to mean something. and a lot of questions got raised as to what the fuck that means and why is that happening. All questions that are very valid, especially considering part of the investigation by the Federal Bureau of Labor was about how what did they they phrased it like this: nepotism. Have we heard that word before, kids? Nepotism, like, I don't know, hiring your wife's sister to your job despite like not necessarily knowing if she's super qualified to even have that job. Yeah, so that becomes obviously like mad suspicious overall. A lot of shades of Shamar Moore. I keep calling him Shamar Moore. Sharon Moore, who by the way was in court yesterday and allegedly might be getting some charges dropped. There was a person who I follow on Twitter. I'm sorry, not on Twitter, on Instagram, and she was pointing out how his lawyers are trying to point out that to get the warrant that led to the investigation of Sharon Moore, revealing that he was in fact allegedly having an affair with his executive assistant. They claimed that he was stalking the executive, but did not mention that while they were conducting their investigation, he was still, like, they were still working together. Like, she was his executive assistant. So him texting her would not be out of the norm. And so they made it seem like Sharon was calling her all the time and texting her all the time, like about their relationship or about their alleged relationship, when his lawyer is probably going to make the case that it was like legitimately about work. Anyway, back to this other crazy shit. Tony Clark allegedly has been found to have had an inappropriate relationship with his sister-in-law, while she, and then on top of that, she also got a job with the MLBPA in 2023. That is crazy, and it does suck. There's also the other factor that he may be potentially in some more legal trouble because there's a degree of, there's other stuff outside of the inappropriate relationship, because there's stuff to actually do with a lot of money. For instance, there's this organization called One Team, which is a massive conglomerate of name, image, and likeness rights for a multitude of players, NFL and MLB players. And it's supposed to be a way for them to generate money outside of the league. So to generate like more endorsements, more NIL deals, that like stuff we see at like the college level, right? To generate more of those type of deals for players so that they're getting external revenue funds, which is a key part of having leverage over these leagues when it comes time to negotiate, right? And we'll talk about why that's important, because there's another league that, surprisingly enough, has a massive set of leverage over the ownership group when it comes to the teams and stuff like that. We'll talk about that right after this. So keep that in mind. Leverage in terms of diversifying where your money comes from, right? Because currently, right now, most of the time, you're only seeing like endorsement deals for like major big time players like quarterbacks 99% of the time, or big time defensive players like Aaron Donald used to have deals and stuff. Like Cameron Ward has a chunky Campbell's chicken soup deal, and they're trying to, this company's job was going to be generating like massive amounts of NIL deals for a multitude of players who sign over their name, image, and likeness rights to be sold off by this company on a lot of different ways. And this is supposed to be a way to generate external revenue for players. The head of this company also just so happened to set up like massive bonuses in their contracts for the executive board. That is like mad suspicious in terms of like, hey man, like, they're not gonna like actually do all that much, but you're somehow paying them almost their entire salary with these bonuses. Don't know the exact numbers, but it's like a bonus that is absurdly high, that it raised eyebrows by the investigation that was conducted. So it must have been fucking massive, because when it comes to executives, the bonuses are crazy. But to even have a bonus that is built into somebody's contract that even another, other group, an external investigation says is crazy, is on a whole nother level. But it was that kind of stuff, plus potentially some other like financial stuff. Why is this all important? One, it's crazy that Tony Clark thought that was cool. It is messed up on a whole nother level in terms of like his relationship with his wife. It is very rare that you see somebody blow up their entire life in something that honestly they should be surprised if they are not caught. Right? Don't know if he's like got like some deep loving relationship with his sister-in-law and their connection is like true love, and maybe that's what's going to happen after all this, or it could just be they were having a good time with each other all the time, and it begs the question of like, what is the sister supposed to do in her relationship with her sister? Have to imagine permanently damaged forever, understandably so, I think. Holding a grudge for sure. Tony Clark does have kids, from what I understand, so that's messed up on a whole nother level as well. And like, what do you do when like you get fired from your job instantaneously, and then also everybody else finds out that you cheated on your wife with her sister, allegedly, according to this investigation? Like, you just like what is your phone like? What do you do with your phone? Like, do you try to even call and contact your wife? Or are you just like, I'm going to pack all my stuff up. I'm not even going to be there to pick it up. I'm going to have movers come and get it. I'll be staying in a hotel. And I'm assuming, you got to figure out the lawyer situation. It's crazy work on a whole nother level. But like I said before, the important part about this is not only Tony Clark was not well liked by the players, but on top of that, Tony Clark also had a massive CBA negotiation coming up this relatively soon, because the CBA ends this year at the end of this upcoming season, and there will be a massive negotiation where the centerpiece of it seems to be, according to a lot of reporting, the owners are going to be pushing for a salary cap, which there's probably been rumblings about many times before, but now it seems like it's like legitimately going to be a sticking point, and to the point where the owners are ready to lock out the players from being able to play. And obviously, there's a lot of dudes who are going to be rookies. There's a lot of dudes who are going to be second-year players, third-year players, and they don't have a ton of bread saved up or anything like that. And they were banking on being a Major League Baseball player or a minor league baseball player, because a lot of people forget the minor league baseball players get fucked in this situation too, and they got a lot less resources. And the problem with the lockout is that it is the owners saying that they are okay with damaging the actual business of Major League Baseball, because the more of those guys who are at the low end of Major League Baseball that could eventually make it to the big leagues, you never know. Because you never know where like great players come from when it comes to baseball. But the more of those guys who have to sit at home week in and week out, month after month, waiting for the strike to be over potentially, that's more players who are never going to play baseball again, who are going to create holes in the minor league system, who are talents that they have missed out on because these guys had to go get like regular day jobs. It is going to prevent the progress of Major League Baseball. And that is something that I'm sure when you're a person who's concerned about dollars and cents, it never even crosses your mind, because, in your eyes, paying employees is a hindrance to you. But when it comes to the salary cap situation, why you should root against it. One, it puts an artificial cap on what technically could be a limitless amount of money that can be made by the players, because it is basically the salary cap will be contingent to a percentage increase based off of total league revenue, not what it is now, where essentially like you can pay players whatever you want to. And the bigger issue is, and I think obviously the biggest example they're going to use is the recent spending by the Mets and the Dodgers, two teams that are in New York, one team that is in Los Angeles, and one team that people will more than like fans are going to be like, they bought the World Series championship. And I'm sorry to break it to you, every player in Major League Baseball gets paid money, a lot of money. And so for you to be like, oh, they bought the championship, it's like they paid really good players to all be on one team, and they won the championship when it was all said and done. And of course, they're not going to bring up the Seattle Mariners being real comp for the LA Dodgers, and the Mariners being a team that has being a team that does not have a ton of money spent on it. combine that with the fact that you talk about the Houston Astros a couple years ago as a Houstonian. The Astros famously were competing and swinging with the New York Yankees and beating the New York Yankees when they were spending a ton of money on their roster, and the Astros were spending like a quarter or half as much as a lot of other teams because they were winning through development, despite the Astros being a team that is in the third largest media market in America. They won't talk about how the Colorado Rockies are essentially like cashing checks. They won't talk about how the Oakland A's are essentially cashing checks and also making the league look bad in terms of this shit that's going on with the Las Vegas move, right? Like the Oakland A's, they drained every single dollar they possibly could out of the Oakland fan base. And that's the problem. That's the issue right there. There's wrong on the side of the people who are running these billion-dollar organizations. And they think that the labor should have to pay for their wrongs. So that's going to be a huge sticking point coming up, and you should be mentally prepared for a strike. Oh, well. Like I said before, MLBPA, they got the kind of relationship that I wish the NFLPA had with the NFL ownership group, because they would get a lot more done if they knew that it was not good vibes every time they walked into a negotiation with the NFLPA. But same thing. Anyway, talking about the other league that I was mentioning before that has an unexpected leverage play to go along with their negotiations coming up. The WNBA is currently negotiating their CBA, which is important because the WNBA not only is skyrocketing in terms of viewership overall, but women's basketball is skyrocketing along with it. More stars are starting to emerge at the college level that eventually will be WNBA players. And so the players have made a strategic effort that this is now the time where they are going to get a 25% or more share in terms of revenue that is generated by the league allocated to player salaries, right? The goal is 27.5 apparently. I'm assuming they set it at 27.5 so that the owners can be like, take the 2.5% off and make it 25%. If you guys don't know, the NBA is a 50-50 league, I think. It's like 50... Yeah, it's 50-50 in the NBA. It used to be like 55, 40 something, whatever. And now it's a 50-50 league. The NFL is in a similar mold. They get the money that is allocated, the net revenue that is gained, split down the middle. And half of it is allocated to players making money, and the other half is allocated to the owners doing whatever with the team, and they get to sign the checks and pass out the checks to the teams at the end of the year when it comes to like TV revenue and stuff like that. So this is now the time. They are striking while the iron is hot, knowing that WNBA owners, in terms of team owners, know that this upcoming season is going to be even bigger than the one before because they're going to get more exposure. The ES, and this is all coinciding, and I'm assuming this information was known beforehand on the part of the WNBA PA. So far, there have been portions of this negotiation where the WNBA ownership group has just not responded to a deal presented by the PA. And recently, they denied the deal where it was like 27.5% is the split. And then a couple days later, Breanna Stewart announces that she is going back to play Euroball at her old team that she used to play with Sue Bird with. And a lot of people were like, oh, why does that matter? Well, one, it reminds the WNBA that their competition is not just the players. Their competition is every other team on the planet that already pays WNBA players, current WNBA players, more money when they come to play overseas, right? Yes, there are players who are like non-superstars who play EuroLeague ball and play international and stuff like that. That's how the WNBA got created, by the way. The known desire for people to watch women's basketball everywhere else sparked the desire for a domestic league in America. It's been proven time and time again. You can talk about where the money for the teams comes from. You can talk about how there's crazy stories that if you go listen to a certain podcast with Sue Bird, she will tell you that she knew the owner of her team was running with someone. I'm not going to say no names because I like being alive. Anyway, was running with someone, and they was making sure everybody was getting paid, and they was making sure everybody was getting fed. So whatever you have to say about that, that is the case. But the Breanna Stewart announcing for the first time, I want to say it's like in 2 years, she hasn't played EuroLeague ball, that she's going back overseas, and the EuroLeague championship, the biggest championship, if not the second biggest championship on the planet when it comes to basketball in general, is going to be overlapping with the start of camp dates for the WNBA. Breanna Stewart, also a member of the WNBA PA's executive board with Neficia Collier, Kelsey Plum, and a couple of other players as well. And that's pivotal because it is a stern reminder that we are not fucking around. Like, this is for real. Either you pay us the money or we're going to find somebody else who will. And that's a real thing, especially knowing that Unrivaled has already started their expansion to other cities. For instance, this past season for Unrivaled earlier, I want to say a couple months ago, they went to Philadelphia and they played in the arena where the Sixers play, and it was sold out, like almost instantaneously, and it was on TV and all that kind of stuff like that. So the Unrivaled is expanding. And if the WNBA wants to choose to lock out players, the players are showing, one, great aptitude for understanding how to reduce the leverage of their opponent. Their opponent is the owners. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The owners are keeping money from them that they know that they have, and they know that the owners are trying to expand. Because if the owners were so hard up for money, why is there going to be an expansion team in the WNBA every year for the next 5 years? If this league is not making money, why are you making more teams? And I think that is the most obvious and blatant answer. Why were the Connecticut Suns sold to a Houston to a Houston group, right? It's so worthless. Nobody wants it. Nobody's going to sell it to the games, right? So why are we making more of this thing that apparently nobody wants? It's because they're lying. Like Dave Portnoy mentioned this before because he tried to circumvent the process that the WNBA and the NBA had agreed upon, which was the expansions, the year-by-year expansion that we're currently in right now, where there eventually will be a Boston team in like 6 years. He was trying to buy the Connecticut Sun, so there'll be a Boston team next year. And he mentioned in the process, he was like, I know liars when I know liars when I see liars. And they're lying about how much money they're making to make it seem like to deflate prices, to deflate how much they're paying the players. And I don't like Dave Portnoy for a lot of different reasons, and I've talked about him on this podcast. Again, I'm not going to talk about him again. But, he was right about that. And, yeah, man, like they're lying. The WNBA and the WNBA ownership group is in a massive. The WNBA ownership group is probably in the most even playing field battle out of any other of the major sports in America in terms of how they face off against the player association. Because the WNBA players have made it clear they will go somewhere else where they will get paid. And when you can go somewhere else and get the money, yes, it sucks that you have to travel overseas every single season to go play somewhere else. But if that's what it takes for people to get paid correctly, to get paid where they feel is a fair value, then they are willing to do it. And Breanna Stewart seems like she's leading the way. Obviously, there's going to be more options for people like Breanna Stewart because she's a better basketball player than some of the players in the league overall. But nonetheless, it is important to note that WNBA ownership group is technically not in competition with just the players. They're in competition with every EuroLeague basketball team across the world. So, but yeah, man. I thought that was an interesting dynamic. I don't know how it's going to shake out. They've been the ads for the WNBA season have been going, and most importantly, ESPN publicly announced, and I want to say this is like an hour before I started this show, they announced that they are no longer doing Sunday Night Baseball, and they will be doing Women's Sports Sunday. So it'll be Sunday programming featured around women's sports. And you have to imagine that's just dedicated time slots for WNBA games, if there are going to be any. So, once again, nobody wants WNBA games. Nobody wants WNBA teams. You should be grateful that we give you this because we've been operating this league at such a loss for such a long time. And then all of a sudden, everybody wants a piece of the league. And now all of a sudden there's no money around anymore. But, yeah, that about sums it up for me in terms of the union talk. I did say the name of this episode was Money Talks, and it was about how money does talk and bullshit walks. So, Yeah, moving on. Ending the show on some massively amazing Black history that is being made today, because every day is Black history. Alana Myers-Taylor won her first gold medal in the Olympics this year. She is 41 years old, making her the oldest American woman to win gold. And she is also the most decorated Black athlete at the Winter Games ever. So shout out to her. Layla Edwards, this happened earlier today. Team USA women's hockey won the gold medal. Layla Edwards is now the first Black woman to win gold with Team USA hockey. Shout out to her, doing it at such a young age too. She's like 19 or something like that. And then another crazy coincidence that all kind of happened in the same day. Texas Tech superstar Nyjah Candy has become the first college softball athlete with a player-exclusive cleat. Shout out to her. She has an Audi Zero, which if you don't know, Audi Zeros are like mad comfortable. If you have a foot that fits into them, my feet are too wide. But if you have a narrow foot, Audi Zeros are amazing speed shoes. And she has an Audi Zero Instinct 2.0. So shout out to her. And they will be available to buy like later on this season. She is going to wear them this week in terms of softball, and pretty dope shit. Yeah, man. Myers-Taylor, first gold medal that she's ever won in her career, 41 years old, oldest athlete to win a gold medal for Team USA, and most decorated Black athlete at the Winter Games. Layla Edwards, at a very young age, the first Black woman to win a gold medal with Team USA hockey, and then Nyjah Candy with the basically stamp of approval that every athlete has ever wanted, the custom player exclusive cleat signature shoe on the way. If you guys don't know, Nyjah is the Texas Tech pitcher that dominated the softball World Series last year and was also the first softball player to ever earn a $1 million NIL deal. Shout out to her and many more $1 million NIL deals. The NBA All-Star game also, I'm not saying this isn't Black history, but it is important. But the NBA All-Star game got the most viewers that it's gotten in 24 years. Crazy work. More than 46 million people watched the game, and that's across like NBC and all the platforms and stuff like that. A lot of people, that was triple the number of people who watched it last season. Ironically enough, I didn't watch this year's NBA All-Star game, but I did watch last year's, and I regret it. A lot of people were building a lot of speculation that Wemby was going to be out there going belt to ass if he wanted to go out there and play laissez-faire and lackadaisical on offense and on defense. He was just gonna start murking dudes. And Bomani Jones, I was listening to his podcast like I always do. Shout out to The Right Time. Make sure you go check it out. But Bomani Jones is basically just like, Wemby is in a better position to embarrass people if they're not playing at a high enough level to compete against him in the All-Star game. I'm like, that's a great point. Because if you go in there thinking you're going to get like a free layup and Wemby just comes over there and smacks your shit into the second row, we were talking about that embarrassment factor earlier with the 1v1 tournament, right, with Unrivaled, and I think that played a good factor into this. Also, having like the little miniature tournament, I think it got a little bit more. It got a build up going, right? Like if you didn't watch round 1 of the tournament, but then you heard it was like really close. If you watched round 2, you heard it was like super close, and you got to watch the final game, and you knew that the hype was for real, and you heard that people were playing tough in the previous matchups that led to the finals. You were super pumped about that, and I think that's a great idea. Honestly, knowing how social media works, where people will be making content based off of what's happening in these games. And then on top of that, knowing that there can be a way for you to build up to the final product when it's all said and done, as opposed to like, we did the skills challenge, we did the 3-point challenge. By the way, shout out Dame Lillard, who's not playing this season, but won the 3-point challenge this year. Crazy work. It's the dunk contest. Interesting year for the dunk contest to kind of fall off a little bit when the game itself for the first time in a long time was like mad competitive, or like actually kind of competitive, where people were trying a little bit. And maybe a brand new day, maybe a dawn is breaking, and we're seeing, like I said, I started off with the negative, and we led through all that super positive shit that was going on, people fighting to get more money, you know what I mean, get more money from the rich people that claim that they don't have any money, and then on top of that, all that Black history I just read off. I'm sure there's a ton more that I didn't get to, but I do have to go. We've been doing this for like an hour and a half. I appreciate everybody for tuning into the show, especially for everybody who started at the beginning and got all the way to the end. Tell me what you think about what I said about Sean Strickland. Tell me what you think about the Dolphins, because I think they're going to have to cut Tua. We'll see. MLBPA stuff that was going on, crazy work. The WNBA and what's going on in terms of their CBA negotiations and how that'll be pivotal for years to come, knowing that the WNBA is on the rise. The NBA All-Star Game, tell me what you thought about that. And then Black History that was made throughout the course of this year. Shout out to anybody who checked out any part of the podcast. Hit me up on Twitter at FB_playbook. You can text me never. I don't know why I just said this, because I was looking at my phone and somebody sent me a text. Hit me up on Twitter at FB_playbook or at the Ashton J. That's my personal account. I do like a lot more silly stuff on there. And then you can follow me on Instagram at the Ashton Forever. That's where I post the most. That's where I spend the most of my time as well. Hit me up on there. Anything else? Oh, make sure you like and subscribe. I'm out. Make sure you stay hydrated. Tell the people in your life that you do love, that you love them. Even if you just told them that you love them, tell them that you love them again. And most importantly, go home, Roger.